My name is Brian Allens. Thank you so much for joining us this day, this click, this video, whenever it is you join the celebration of our friend, a loving father, a loving son, a loving friend, Jeff Tragic Mr. Scott. Why do I say it like that? Why do I phrase it? Jeff Tragic Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott influenced so many young minds in the classroom, influenced everyone around him in a positive manner. Tragic influenced people from thousands upon thousands of miles away, halfway around the world, in a positive nature. Everyone I've ever met and talked to, and I've known Tragic for over 15 years, which seems like a long time, but it feels like yesterday, just a blink of the eye. Some stars are extinguished much too quickly. But while Jeff Tragic Scott was with us, his star burned so very bright. A loving father, a loving son, truly a loving friend. But this is not a time for sorrow. This is a time for celebration, that we celebrate the life, we celebrate memories, for as long as we have memories in our hearts, the burning ember beside, making our bellies warm at night, we will never truly forget him, and he will always be there with us when we need him. Thank you. And these are just some of the memories that we have of our good friend, our brother, Jeff Tragic Scott. Where to start? Why don't I just start at the beginning? And we may jump around a bit, but bear with me. I'm going to talk about how we were meant to be together. And when I say that, I'm talking about he, I, and the community. And it will all make sense soon. You know, I first met Tragic in Vanguard Saga Heroes more than 15 years ago. We did some grouping together and ended up becoming part of the guild. And he was just an absolute treasure. Just a wonderful player and a wonderful person. When I say wonderful person, I'm not just talking about, yeah, he did lots of stuff for the guild, of course he does. Made a lot of friends, of course he has. But what I'm talking about is the gentleman who was playing with us at the time as well. Soon after we stopped playing Vanguard, as I was unaware of this at the time, he is such a good person inside and out that he literally extended a hand to a friend who was in need, who was in trouble, and had them come and live with him, getting them back upon their feet. And that's just the type of person Tragic was. Tragic is. He's just a good person, where Tragic is and Jeff becomes. And that's what really is such a wonderful thing, is how he just went out of his way all the time to help people, all the time. Now, after we're done playing Vanguard, we kind of all went our own ways a bit. I didn't see even Loudon for a quick minute, and one day I got an email that we were going to play Rift. Oh, fantastic, Rift. So I came, we played Rift. We put the guild back together and played Rift. Some people on the other side were always very upset that we were doing so well in game. So a little dwarf came and re-rolled back on our side, which was the good side, the Guardian. I think it's Guardians and Defiance. Not that it really matters, but it was so interesting and so wonderful that I invited this gentleman into TeamSpeak. And inside TeamSpeak, I'm talking. I'm just talking in channel. It was he, myself, Loudon may have been in the channel. There's about 4 or 5 of us, and he was coming in talking about saying how he re-rolled his other tunes and all that type of stuff, and came to our side, and he heard me talking, and the first thing he goes is, "Did you play Vanguard?" I said, "Absolutely, I played Vanguard." "Were you the guild leader?" I said, "I absolutely was the guild leader." He said, "I'm inspired. I'm tragic." This is 3 games later. This is years passing. This is, I believe, 3 years later that I just run into him in a game with countless servers, in a game, a place that is so easily differentiated, that he happened to join the same server we joined, happened to be on the opposite side, happened to be on the team that we were constantly beating over and over again for world content in PvP. And he happened to join TeamSpeak at the time that I was there, that he heard my voice and came home, and has been home ever since. That, to me, is very profound, because what are the chances of that occurring? What are the chances of things of that nature taking place? Some people believe in fate, some people don't. Destiny, whatever the case may be. The Force leads us to strange places and strange things. Who knows? All I know is I believe we were supposed to know each other. We were supposed to spend a lot of time. He and I had very unique schedules at the time. I was always bouncing out and about, doing things and coming back at strange hours and doing stuff. He was the pit boss down in the casinos, which was always just a blast to hear the stories that he would tell. Just a blast. And this is one of the things that made him so special, is no matter what time of day it was, he'd be on at 3 a.m., 6 a.m., whatever the case is when he's done with his shift. Just absolutely, he would have these wonderful stories to tell about the various people that he met, the various people that he helped out, the various things that was going on. He and I would exchange stories often, and it was just so much fun. And I'd like to tell a story right now. A story about, some of you may have heard this already, but he was coming into work on shift change, right? And he walked past the floor of the casino, and he noticed that there was a very grungy looking gentleman that looked like he hadn't eaten in about a month, and looked like he hadn't cleaned himself in such even longer of time, that was sitting at the blackjack table with a very small amount of chips. This person looked like he was drunk, high, out of his mind. Who knows? When Jeff walked past him, he noticed that he had about $20 worth of tokens, chips, credits, whatever they're called. Sorry, chips. There we are, chips. And what we noticed next, he came back about an hour later, making his rounds on the different tables, and he noticed this person had quadrupled their money. This person had well over 10 times their money. It was up to about $15,000. He was like, wow, that's a pretty good run for that guy, fella, with that amount of chip. He comes back a couple hours later. The guy had 200,000. He comes back a couple hours later. The guy had 400,000. He comes back a couple hours later. The guy has $800,000. 800. He looks at him. And of course, this is a casino. You're always going to look at and see if people are playing legitimately and they're good to go. But as far as they could tell, this is just some guy that they've seen, some people had seen on the streets, and he's just a homeless guy in Las Vegas. And he's just playing blackjack with someone that gave him $10 outside. Got up to 800,000 chips. Now, the tragedy of this story is that this individual went from having 800,000, didn't leave. He did not leave. He did not do anything. He stayed there at the casino for 24 straight hours and played and lost every single cent. Got up to $865,000 and lost everything. Now, Tragic told the story with much more enthusiasm and much more pizzazz than I did right there. You have to excuse me. I have a bit of a cold. But the point is that it's just an energetic story that he would tell people. And that's just one of hundreds of amazing stories he would tell about Nicolas Cage or Keanu Reeves and other types of things, just interesting fellows that he met there. Infected his life. It's just one of those things that he was very, very good with. Just good with people. Taking in not only from Tragic, who would help people from thousands upon thousands of miles away, and Jeff, who would bring people into his home. He brought another into his home later on, during just a few years ago. He did. Just to get him back on his feet. Just to do those types of things. It's just absolutely stunning. He took a friend's dog. About 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago, he took a friend's dog who could no longer have it anymore because of an issue that it had a problem. It bit someone in the neighborhood, and it was either put it down or get rid of it. So, Jeff, with his kind heart, took the dog, took the pet. And that's fantastic. That's just the type of individual he is. He will always strive to do something to help another. He will always strive to do something to not just improve those that are around him, but to improve those from afar. This man had such great tendencies. It's just the changes he made in his own life to affect young minds, to change completely, while he is raising kids, working full time, and goes back to school. Who does that? So few of us change. So few of us go through and change the way we are. So few of us actually have the ambition, the courage, and the tenacity to go see something, know that there's an issue with it, such as our public school system. He knew very, very well that teachers were going downhill, benefits were getting poorer, the way teachers are being treated, paid, handled is going downhill. He knew that when he started to go to school. He knew all that. He wanted to affect young minds. And how many conversations I had with him about that. How many conversations, how many term papers he shared, how many things did he show us on a regular basis, myself, on a regular basis while he was going to school. Is just amazing. And to do this when you're not 22 years old, you're doing this much later in life, is impressive. It's wonderful. It's absolutely just a triumph. I just want to say thank you that I was able to know you, Scotty. You know, Jeff, Tragic Scott. I just want to say that no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, I will never forget you. You're my friend. You're my brother. And always will be. The love and the light inside this one honors and cherishes the love and the life inside of each one of your family members, each one of your friends, each and every single person that you touched with your positivity and your warm heart, and lights the way for your next adventure. I'm gonna miss you, baby. As a baby bird.
First time I remember coming across Scotty was in a game called Rift Plains of Tolera. Now going into Rift, we were looking to make a name for ourselves, and we wanted to fight the baddest kid on the block. But you can't be the best if you don't beat the best. So prior to the release of the game, we researched every guild out there, and we came across a guild, Lords of the Dead, that just happened to be Scotty's team. We thought they were the best competition based on their record, and when we went into the game, we learned early who their most skilled players were. We found those players and we targeted them first in battle. Scotty was one of those players. He played a Stormcaller, and if left alone, he could wreak havoc on the battlefield. so he was always near the top of our kill order list. Now, we did pretty well in Rift, pretty much defeating his team every time we faced them, even when we were outnumbered. This eventually led to them making an alliance with 3 to 4 other teams to fight us. And they came with 3 or 4 times our numbers at that point, and still weren't able to prevail. Eventually, we pretty much beat Lords of the Dead into submission. They wouldn't face us on the battlefield. If we queued up for a scenario and they saw they were fighting us, they would just leave the scenario. If we forced them to fight us on the battlefield, they would either take the loss without fighting back, or they would turn tail and run. Now, that was pretty much their whole team except for a couple of people. And in those couple of people was Tragic, the character Scotty played. No matter how often we beat his team, he would still run up and fight us while the rest of them would sit back and either take the loss or die. There was no quit in this guy. Scotty wasn't only competitive, boy had no quit. He'd just keep coming. Later I learned that he was basically forced out of his team for relentlessly challenging them whenever they gave up. And when that happened, he made a new character just so he could fight his old team. So while I knew of Tragic back in Rift, I didn't actually meet him till he applied for our guild to play in Star Wars The Old Republic. And he was an asset for our team right from the start. Unlike most teams, we promote members based on their individual merit, their temperance, and their skill, instead of the time they're on the team, or some other subjective reason like who's friends with who, or something like that. Tragic was an excellent teammate, and he eagerly helped us wherever he could without even seeking recognition. He was also highly organized and had a masterful understanding of crafting and economy. It wasn't long before he was elevated to the rank of officer and led our crafting division. He worked so hard prior to release of that game that he went from recruit to the highest rank we have in the guild besides guild leader. And when that game launched, his organization and strategy paid off. We were later informed by the game developers that his character was flagged for review and sent across to their desk. The reason why is he was the 3rd richest character in the game, and they needed to check to see if he was a gold seller. Now I'd wager that he was probably the richest character in the game, because they were only tracking credits and didn't check the massive amount of resources he had spread out among multiple characters. So thanks to Tragic and the effort he put into our team, we had a top-notch crafting and economy division. He helped us with recruitment, he helped us as a progression raider, so all his efforts helped pay it off, and thanks to him and people like him, we were able to achieve World Rank 1 in raid progression for SWTOR. And he also extended his efforts to give feedback to developers. He wrote dozens and dozens of pages of feedback on their crafting in the game, and they actually implemented a large portion of his suggestions going forward in the SWTOR patches. He was very proud of that, and we were very proud for him to do that and get our team some recognition in improving the game. So that's what I know about Scotty as it relates to our team. But on a personal level, I know this guy loved his kids. He talked about his kids all the time. Every time they'd go to visit someone else during the summer, he'd talk a big game first couple of days about how he was going to have the house to himself and all the things he couldn't wait to do. 2 days in, almost without fail, he was lonesome and missing his kids. He could only make it 2 days before he was all sad and we were all laughing about it. Single guy, can't have any fun without his kids there. But it's sweet if you think about it. He really loved his boys. And he also loved his mom because he mentioned her almost as much as he mentioned his kids. Some of the things you might not know about Tragic. So he was a clean freak. I would have never thought that about Tragic. Big, burly, tough-sounding dude. Clean freak. I had multiple conversations with the guy, of all things, about steam cleaners. He told me how he'd steam clean his house. He gave me suggestions on what steam cleaners I should use and buy. So it's kind of weird for a single dude to have a steam cleaning conversation with another single dude, but there you go. He was all into cleaning. That brings up a point that he was telling me a story one time how he went on a few dates with this girl and then she gave him a present. And when he opened the present, he saw that it was an air freshener. So it really got off with him because he wondered if she was trying to tell him something, especially as a clean freak getting an air freshener. So I always thought that was really funny. Aside from loving his family and being into cleaning products, Tragic was definitely one of the most generous people I've ever met. A few years ago, I was laid off teaching. I had just been teaching for a couple years and I got laid off. I had no idea what I was going to do. I didn't have a whole bunch of money saved because I'd only been teaching a couple of years. Didn't know where I was going to find a job. None of this was planned. Out on my own, only income. And as soon as I told Tragic about that, he just offered for me to come move in with him. Without question, he said, come move in. We'll look for teaching jobs together out here in the area. And he was all for it. Now, keep in mind, this is a dude I've only met online. We've never went out and done anything. I've never met him personally in real life. I just know him from playing video games. But I knew 100% that this guy was truthful in telling me if I could come live there, I knew I had an option to come live there. Now, I didn't come live there, but for anybody who's doubting his sincerity, a couple years later, another one of our teammates was down on his luck, and Tragic offered him to come stay at his house, and he did. And he was trying to help the guy, teach him up to be a dealer at a casino, and he wanted to give the guy a skill set to try to get a good paying job because the guy didn't go very far in school, and Tragic really wanted to mentor and help this guy. So there is no doubt in my mind, he was the most generous person I've met, and if you were to need something, he'd give you the shirt off his back if he was your friend. He did everything he could to help people. And that's why he wanted to be a teacher. So after he raised his kids and they were ready to go to college, this guy went and while working the majority of the time, went back to school. Middle age, goes back to school to pursue his job as a teacher because he wasn't being fulfilled enough working at the casino. He wanted to work with young people. He wanted to mentor them. He wanted to make their lives better. I know how much he loved being a dad. I think he wanted to extend that pretty much to the professional realm. And I feel so bad for all those kids who only got the chance to meet him for such a short period. So many groups of young people could have been so positively affected by him. But that said, I know Tragic, and even the short time these kids got to spend with him, the couple years he was able to teach, that they were impacted by him. And I know they were impacted by him because he could make an impact with just a short period meeting with someone. And we actually have a guildmate who wants to talk about that. Only met him once, but Tragic had such a deep impact on him that he wants to share his story about his time with Tragic.
We just wanted to share one more thing. This is a memory of one of our community members, Gabriel, better known as Deoxic. One day during preparations for a game that we were gearing up for, a member was removed from the team somewhat abruptly. It was someone who was working hard, helping to conduct interviews daily. I thought the removal seemed unfair and unjust, even though I did not know the reasons to why. I decided to inquire, and I texted one of the officers, Jeff, Tragic, to find more out. After a few minutes, he told me to join his channel in voice comms to discuss it. At this point, I almost regretted contacting him. Taking in consideration I was new to the team and English was not my native language, but I ended up meeting with him despite my apprehensions. To my total surprise, he was extremely cordial and explained what happened. He stuck to the facts while still treating the former member with respect during the discussion. He also accounted for the language barrier and provided just enough information for me to easily understand without getting bogged down in the details. Instantly, my plea and fear turned into understanding and appreciation due to his respectfulness. Later that day, he joined a channel I was chatting with a friend in just to hang out and just to talk. We all just hung out, had fun, told stories, and enjoyed some laughs together. Thank you, Deoxy. We wanted to share that that's the type of thing Tragic did. Even if you're a member for one game, 3 weeks, a year, 5, 10, 15, Tragic treats everyone like this. This is not a special occasion, even though it kind of might feel like it is. He'd do this with anyone and everyone. He affects people's lives from thousands of miles away as Tragic. He affects people's lives in his classroom as Mr. Scott. And he affects people's lives, his friends and family as Jeff. Jeff Tragic Scott, thank you, brother. We love you.
Ryan Schlatter.
Mary Victoria Long.
Jeffrey B. Scott.